Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the South Carolina Department of Consumer Affairs Roundtable for Physical Fitness Providers. My name is Carrie Gruby-Leibarker, and I am the Administrator and Consumer Advocate for the department. I'm joined by Adam Burr, Staff Attorney, Joni Green, Deputy Chief Investigator, Deborah Friday-Lockhart, Licensing Supervisor, and then we have Curry Holly, a visitor, who will be here to help answer questions, but you may know her as her role as licensing attorney here at the agency. So it's our pleasure to come together today to talk to you all a little bit about compliance reviews and the laws that apply to physical fitness service providers and some educational opportunities that are coming up soon that you may be interested in, as well as some hot topics. So let's go ahead and dive in. We have our little disclaimer that whatever we discuss today is not meant to serve as a substitute for you seeking our guidance through an interpretation or otherwise. We're just giving you an introduction overview to the subject matter. Some housekeeping items. So the webinar is going to be 60 minutes. We're not going to take any breaks. We are recording the webinar and we'll send out an email whenever it is available on our YouTube page. And then at the end of the presentation today, we're going to have a hot topics open forum. So if you have anything that you want us to address, please make sure that you put it in the chat box or the Q&A. If for some reason we can't provide you an answer today, we'll make sure that we do so as soon as possible. And then we're going to have a couple of poll questions throughout the presentation as well. And they're just us trying to get to know who we have on the other side of the computer screen. So we'll go ahead and launch the first poll question. And behind the scenes, we have our social media strategist, Bailey. And so the first question is, how many years have you been licensed in South Carolina? 0 to 5 years, 5 to 15, 15 to 25, or 25 plus years. As you're doing that, I'll let you know that I have been with the department for 21 years. I was a law clerk starting out and became a staff attorney in 2005. So I have 20 legit state government years. They've all been here at the agency. Curry has been with the agency since 2019. 2019, long time. Adam, is it 2018?
2019.
2019, I was so close. Deborah is 2002.
2002.
Yay. And then Joni is, hold on, Joni. 2006.
Yeah.
Yay. Good stuff. All right. So go ahead and close that out, Bailey. Perfect. Do we get, yep. So 0 to 5 years, the majority, 63% of our attendees today, and then 5 to 15 years, 38%. And we didn't have anybody in the more seasoned categories. So great. Glad that y'all are joining us today, and I hope you walk away knowing more than you did when you first joined us. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get into the guidelines for the presentation. Hold on. My mouse is not cooperating. Okay, great. So we have an intro of who we are at the department, filing requirements, contract requirements. Then we're going to look at enforcement, go over some renewal tips and updates, look at compliance reviews and when our investigators come on site, the items that they are looking for, and then go over some free resources that we have for y'all, especially in the area of data privacy. So first, who we are here at the Department of Consumer Affairs. So we are the state's consumer protection agency. We are celebrating our 50th anniversary. The law, the South Carolina Consumer Protection Code that created our agency, passed in August of 1974, and it became law January 1, 1975. So we have been celebrating all year long. We have 48 full-time employees in one office location in Columbia, the capital, right by Riverbank Zoo, if you're familiar with the area. And we have 120 statutes under our jurisdiction that we administer and enforce. And the majority of them are consumer credit related. Credit sales, loans, rent to own, consumer leases, but others, they may have a financial component to it and a contract like pre-need funeral contract. So it really does kind of run the gamut. We are governed by a commission. 4 members are appointed by the General Assembly, 4 by the governor, and the Secretary of State serves ex officio. They choose the administrator, the agency director, and then we have 6 divisions. And you're going to hear mainly from our legal division today. So how do folks know our office? Number 1 is that they can file a complaint with us. If a complaint is filed with us and the business or issue is regulated by another state or federal agency, we'll kick it over to them. If it's regulated by our office, the complaint will go to our legal division for the complaint analyst there to review it and see if a statute comes into play. And if the business or issue is not regulated by anyone, which occurs about 8 or 9 out of 10 times, then we engage in a voluntary mediation process. We usually get about $1 million in consumer credits, refunds, and adjustment through mediation. But I used to say that we would process around 3,500, 4,000 complaints annually. That has gone up to around 5,000. Last year, we got over 5,800 complaints, and this year we're already over 6,000. So that is certainly increasing. Folks can also report a scam and report identity theft to our office. We get about 1,100 of those every year. As far as scams go, even if somebody doesn't become a victim, we want to know the kinds of tactics and schemes that fraudsters are using to contact and try and separate our South Carolinians from their personal information or their money. That helps us to educate, put things in presentations and in press releases, educational materials, and so forth. We also want to come alongside somebody who is a scam victim to see if there's a way that we can help them mitigate that event by giving them contacts to different areas. And we also give tips on how to prevent from becoming a victim of a scam, as well as identity theft. And for identity theft, while doing prevention, we also come alongside those who are victims and provide one-on-one guidance to hopefully mitigate that event. Last year, we sent out 17,000, I believe it was, identity theft packets to folks who had reported identity theft to us or to the Federal Consumer Protection Agency, the Federal Trade Commission. You can also background a business. So you may not know that we have a list of all licensees and filers on our website. We want to make sure that consumers take a look and see if a business license is required, that the person they're going to hand their hard-earned money over to is complying with the law and has the license. They are also able to search the complaints that we have on our website and compare fees and charges. We have over 15 industries that have to get licensed or register with our office. It runs from y'all to pawnbrokers, mortgage brokers, pre-need funeral contract providers, credit counselors, athlete agents. It really does run the gamut. We also do free presentations for consumers and businesses. We want to make sure that everyone is aware of their rights and responsibilities under the law. I'm going to give you all a heads up on a couple business presentations we have coming in December later on in the presentation. We only have 4 people in our public information and education division, but because it's a core component of our mission, we have about 27 to 30% of our staff does presentations every year. We'll travel the state, we'll do webinars, we'll go to business conferences or trainings, we'll go to churches, senior groups, just wherever. I was at a Rotary Club last week. I was at a Head Start conference the week before, and the week before that, I was at a computer club. So we will go anywhere to tell folks about what we do and how to prevent scams, ID theft, and otherwise know what laws there are out there and how they can comply. We're also here to answer questions. A lot of times people don't know where to go, and so they can come to us. We get about 25,000 calls annually to our front desk where we have a live receptionist who is ready to send you wherever you need to be. We also, on our website, have over 50 or 60 publications on different topics, again, for consumers and for businesses. We actually have an identity theft protection guide that we're updating that we hope to release next month. And then YouTube, lots of videos on YouTube. We have just an array of information. And this just kind of shows you the growth that we have seen. South Carolina is growing, business is booming. We've seen a 166% increase in folks who have visited our website, almost a 2,000% increase in the YouTube videos that are watched, 55% in complaints filed, and then especially for y'all's area, a 27% in applications and filings that have been received. We're hitting records in that area. And the fact that our licensing staff is processing a complete application on an average of 30 days, it's like 99% right now. It's a phenomenal job that they're doing back there. And Deborah is going to give you a little bit of insight in a moment on how you can file a complete application and get it processed quickly. So most of these services that I talked about can be found on our website at consumer.sc.gov under the How Do I tab. And then to learn more about the agency generally, click About Us. All right, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Adam, who's going to talk about the filing triggers for physical fitness providers. Either use this or use the keyboard, whatever you prefer.
And hello, I'm Adam Burr. I'm one of the attorneys here at the department, and I get to talk to you guys about the Physical Fitness Services Act. So let's go ahead and get started. First, what are physical fitness services? Well, they are facilities or services for the development of physical fitness through either exercise or weight control. And the term includes a whole laundry list of items such as health, exercise centers, clubs, studios, or classes, health spas, weight control centers, clinics, or studios, figure salons, tanning centers, and athletic or sport clubs. So now we get into what are not considered to be physical fitness services. Any type of rehabilitative therapy administered by a licensed physical therapist is not considered physical fitness services. And also, even if it fits the definition of physical fitness services, the following are exempt from the Physical Fitness Services Act. So the state of South Carolina and any of its political subdivisions and any not-for-profit corporations. Sometimes we get questions like, what about gymnastics, martial arts, dance studios, etc.? Are those considered physical fitness? Well, all would be considered to be physical fitness centers if they are advertising as physical fitness centers. So some of the advertising that we've seen, martial arts is a great way to stay physically fit. So here, physical fitness is being promoted. So they are advertising for physical fitness. Another one, gymnastics will allow your child to develop strength, agility, and coordination. Strength, agility, and coordination, they're all byproducts of physical fitness. So physical fitness is being promoted. So it is an example of advertising. So let's get into what must you file and when do you need to file it. So you must file a certificate of authority annually by December 31st. We are in the renewal season right now, which runs from November 1st through December 31st. The cost is $50 per location. Now, there is another report that you have to file annually. We call it an annual report, and it is due every year by June the 30th. It does not cost anything if you file it on time. However, if it's late, it is subject to a $50 late fee. Now, the annual report cannot be filed until calendar year 2026. So please do not submit your annual report with your application unless you're submitting last year's annual report. You forgot to submit it by the June 30th deadline. Then you would submit that annual report and the $50 late fee. But the current one, we ask that you at least wait till January. And as long as you submit it by June the 30th, you'll be fine and there won't be any late fee. I want to mention that there might be some additional requirements, additional filing requirements that your business might need. Depending on your business model, you might need to file what's called a credit grantor notification. You file that annually by January 31st, and that is $120 per business location. And you might potentially need to file what's called a maximum rate schedule. You file that annually by January 31st, and the cost is $40 per location. Now, I'm briefly going to touch on these two filings today, but we are going to have another webinar tomorrow at 2:30 that will go into more detail. So if you think you might need to file the credit grantor notification or the maximum rate schedule, I would encourage you to watch tomorrow's webinar. All right, so the conditions for filing the credit grantor notification, the maximum rate schedule. So with the credit grantor notification, if you are extending credit using written contracts and your gross volume of business exceeds $150,000, then you have to file a credit grantor notification. With the maximum rate schedule, if you're charging a credit service charge in excess of 18% APR, then you have to file and post a maximum rate schedule with us. There's not a statutory cap on the amount of the finance charge that you can charge. You can charge anything that the market will bear, but if it is over 18%, you do have to file a maximum rate schedule with us, and then you post it in a conspicuous place so the consumer can see it. So now let's look at membership options. Membership options are super important because they really determine whether your business needs to file anything else, such as a compliant contract, whether you need to maintain a surety bond, whether you need to file a credit grantor notification, or whether you need to file a maximum rate schedule. So there's three different types of membership options that the department typically sees with gyms. The first is month-to-month. With this, the consumer pays monthly for the months that he wants to use the facilities. There's no long-term commitment. The consumer can cancel at any time for any reason. The second type of membership option that we typically see is prepaid. That means that the consumer pays in advance for the right to use the facilities. So, for example, let's say that the consumer pays $500 up front for a whole year. It's prepaid because the center has not earned the money yet, because the provision of the monthly services after the first month has not happened yet. And the last type of membership option that we typically see is credit. With credit, it occurs in two ways. Either the debt is payable in installments or a credit service charge is made. All right, so what does payable in installments mean? Well, this is super important because this is the most likely way that your business will be extending credit. So it is 4 or more periodic payments, excluding a down payment in which a credit service charge is not imposed. So for example, let's say a consumer signs up for a full year contract. The amount due is $600, but the consumer is permitted to pay in 12 monthly $50 installments. Because it's more than 4, the debt is payable in installments. Now, payable in installments also means 2 or more periodic payments in which either a credit service charge is imposed, excluding the down payment, or any periodic payment that is more than twice the amount of any other payment, excluding the down payment. Right, so now that we've talked about payable installments, let's talk about what is a credit service charge. So generally speaking, it's an extra charge that the consumer must pay as a result of paying over time instead of purchasing it outright with cash. So you want to think of it kind of like interest. So for example, let's say that a consumer signs a year contract. The consumer has two options. They can pay $500 up front in full for that full year, or the consumer can make 12 $50 monthly payments. If the consumer elects that option, the cash price would be $500 and the credit price would be $600. So that extra $100 difference, that is considered to be a credit service charge. And a credit service charge must be expressed as an APR. So this is how you do it. We're going to use the same example from the previous slide. So as a reminder, the consumer purchases a 12-month contract. The consumer can pay $500 up front, or the consumer can make 12 $50 monthly payments for a total credit price of $600. When that $100 credit service charge is converted to an APR, the result is 35.07%. Now, as 35.07% is higher than 18%, a maximum rate schedule would need to be filed. Right, so now let's get into some of the posting requirements. So your certificate of authority, it needs to be posted in a conspicuous location where monies or contracts are received by the center. That's typically going to be at your front desk or your cash wrap. A maximum rate schedule just has to be posted in a conspicuous location in every place of business in this state. Since you are required to post your certificate of authority where monies or contracts are received, typically at your cash wrap, it would probably be a good practice if you have to file a maximum rate schedule, go ahead and post that at your cash wrap too. That way it's all together and the consumer can see it. So now let's talk about financial responsibility. So all centers offering either prepaid or credit contracts of over 3 months duration or over $200 in amount must maintain a surety bond based upon the total amount of members that the center has. And this is all members, not just prepaid or credit members. Now, with personal training, that the 3 months duration is still the same, but the dollar amount actually increases from $200 to $300. Okay, so if you do have to maintain a surety bond, this is how much you'll need to maintain. So between 1 and 99 members, you'll need to maintain a $10,000 surety bond. If you have between 100 and 499 members, you'll need to maintain a $20,000 surety bond. If you have between 500 and 999 members, you'll need to maintain a $30,000 surety bond. If you have between 1,000 and 1,499 members, you'll need to maintain a $40,000 surety bond. And if you have 1,500 or more members, then you'll need to maintain a $50,000 surety bond. All right, so now let's go over some contractual matters. So the contractual, you have to have a contract if you are offering prepaid or credit contracts of over $200 or over 3 months duration. And again, like with the bond, it for personal trainers, that dollar amount increases to $300, but the time stays the same for both prepaid and credit. So if you are offering prepaid contracts, then your contracts must comply with the Physical Fitness Services Act. If you're offering credit contracts, then your contracts must comply with both the Physical Fitness Services Act and the South Carolina Consumer Protection Code. So let's look at some of the prohibitions in your contract. So a contract may not allow for delinquency charges to be imposed before the consumer is more than 10 days delinquent. A contract cannot allow for delinquency charges to exceed the lesser of 5% of the unpaid installment or $25.50, unless you contract for a minimum delinquency charge. In that case, it can be $10.20. The contract cannot seek attorney's fees from a customer that exceed 15% of an unpaid installment. And the contract also cannot seek attorney's fees from the customer for an attorney that is a salaried employee of the center or its assignee. So these are prohibitions under the Consumer Protection Code. Now let's look at some prohibitions under the Physical Fitness Services Act. So your contracts cannot waive the required provisions of the Physical Fitness Services Act. They cannot provide that a right of action or defense of the member may be cut off by assignment of the contract to a third party. They cannot be for a term longer than 24 months. However, if you have been in operation for more than 5 years and you get written permission from the department, then you can have a term for up to 36 months. And a contract also cannot have a length measured by the life of the member, the life of the center, or any other similar indefinite term. Now, as a reminder, any contractual provision that does not comply with the Physical Fitness Services Act is unenforceable against the member. Now, your prepaid and credit contracts, they must be in writing if it's more than 3 months in duration or more than $200 in amount or more than $300 if it's for a personal trainer. They must reveal the finance charge, if any, that the member agrees to pay. It must clearly state the street address or location of the center outlets, the outlets which the member may use, the major facilities and services offered, which services are not subject to a refund. It must have the appropriate TILA disclosures, and it must also contain the right to cancel. So here is an example of the TILA disclosures and also the itemization of the amount financed. So this is what it looks like. Now, since we're on the topic of credit and TILA, I just want to mention two things real quickly that we've been seeing and some complaints that we've gotten against some gyms. So one we've been seeing is when a consumer signs up for a credit contract and pays the monthly installments with a credit card, that a processing fee is being charged on sometimes. You can impose a processing fee on a consumer, but it is considered incidental to the extension of credit, so it does need to be included in the finance charge. Another thing that we are seeing is requiring consumers to use an electronic funds transfer, such as an ACH, as a condition for credit being extended. So that is a violation of federal law. So you can allow consumers to pay their monthly installments with electronic funds transfer, including ACH, but you cannot require it as a condition of credit. So you need to offer at least one other option that isn't a pre-authorized electronic funds transfer. Now you can certainly persuade the consumer to use electronic funds transfer. You can offer a discount. You can explain the benefits. They don't have to remember to pay the monthly bill, but it just cannot be a requirement as a condition of credit. All right. So now let's get into the right to cancel. Now, there are 4 reasons outlined in the Physical Fitness Services Act that require cancellation. So credit and prepaid contracts must contain a right to cancel within 3 business days after signing the contract. If the member dies, and I know this might seem a little strange, like if the member's dead, he obviously cannot work out, but it actually means that it can't be enforced against the member's estate. If there is a substantial physical disability, which is certified by a physician, which makes it permanently impossible for the member to use the center's services, and if the member's permanent relocation to a residence over 50 miles distant from an outlet operated by the center, if the center is unable to arrange for the member's use of another center with equivalent major facilities and services. All right, so you can also have some optional contractual provisions. So credit and prepaid contracts may have more liberal rights of cancellation than outlined in the statute. So for example, the contract allows for a right of cancellation when the member relocates to a residence 25 miles distant from the nearest outlet, while the statute calls for 50 miles. So this would be allowable because it is more liberal. They can provide for an extension of the term of the agreement for a period equal to a period of temporary disability or pregnancy of the member, or for any other justifiable or reasonable cause. And it can specify that the written contract constitutes the entire agreement between the parties, and it also can have a renewal option. Now, speaking of renewal options, there are 2 types of renewal options. There's the standard renewal option and the automatic renewal option. So we'll go over both. So with the standard renewal option, it can be for longer than 1 month, but it cannot be for longer than 12 months. It must be exercised by the buyer in writing or by payment by the buyer of all or part of the renewal price. And it must be exercised only near the expiration of the previous contract. The other one is the automatic renewal provision. So the duration cannot be for more than 1 month. Essentially, this is a month-to-month basis. The member must select it and initial it at the time the initial contract is executed. This is an opt-in provision. So if the consumer does not elect it and does not initial it, then the contract cannot automatically renew. The provision must be disclosed in bold type of at least 14 point, and it has to be on the first page of the contract. And a written reminder must be sent to the member near the expiration of the contract and before the automatic renewal. And the price may not increase or decrease unless written notice is given to the member 30 to 60 days before the price changes. All right, so now let's get into enforcement real quick. And it looks like we have a poll question. So Bailey, would you be able to launch that poll, please? All right, so roundtable question 2, would you be interested in attending a DCA seminar in person? Yes, no, or maybe? All right, I think we've probably given people enough time. So Bailey, could you close this poll and launch the results, please? All right, so looks like 38% said no, they would not be interested in attending in person, and 63% said maybe. So thank you for that feedback. All right, so bear with me, my mouse is acting a little strange. Okay.
Right or left?
All right, so violations of the Physical Fitness Services Act, they are subject to fines of up to $500 per violation and up to $5,000 in a calendar year. And violations are also automatically unfair trade practices. So with an unfair trade practices, you could be facing fines of up to $5,000 per violation. The consumer can sue you for actual damages, plus treble damages and attorney's fees, and also unfair trade practices that arise out of the sale, production, or promotion of consumer goods, services, or interests in land are subject to action by the department. Now, sometimes there will be events that will trigger a notification requirement to the department. So let's look at some of those real quick. So you must notify the department within 10 business days if any of the following occur. If there's any governmental agency, if that governmental agency initiates revocation, suspension, or other proceedings against you that are related to physical fitness services in any state. If someone sues the physical fitness center. Now, after the lawsuit is settled, dismissed, or otherwise resolved, then you must notify the department within 30 days. If there's a bankruptcy, reorganization, or receivership proceedings that are filed by or against the physical fitness center. If you open or close any new physical fitness center or outlet in South Carolina. And if you have any felony indictments or convictions involving breach of trust, moral turpitude, fraud, or dishonest dealings. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Deborah Lockard now, and she's going to talk to you about the renewal process.
There you go. Hello, this is Deborah Friday Lockard, Licensed Supervisor, and today I'm going to give a brief overview on the renewal process, little information on annual reports, and some frequently asked questions to help your renewal go smoothly this year. Of course, the renewal period has already begun. It started November 1st, goes through December 31st. After December 31st, your certificate of authority is expired. The licensing department appreciates your patience while applications may be under review. Applications can still be dropped off to the department, but believe me, filing online is quick and easy, so avoid any hassle and just file online by logging into dcagateway.sc.gov. Let's talk a little bit about becoming an organization administrator. The organization administrator will be the person at the physical fitness facility who will be responsible for processing initials, renewals, printing certificates, paying fees, and making any changes. To become an administrator, you must submit an administrator's request to the department online. Now, once you have logged into the licensure gateway to submit your renewal, you're just simply going to click on Expiring Soon. Under Options, you'll click on the renewal application. And then you're actually going to get some instructions. The instructions tells you everything that needs to be included in the renewal application. And of course, if you have any questions, a lot of you have already talked with Catherine, and Catherine can help you through that process as well as myself. So you're going to look over the instructions, then click I agree, and then next. Now, after you have answered all the questions, you're actually going to get a verification. Look over that verification carefully. Make sure that you've answered the questions correct. If you need to make any changes, click on the green check marks, and that allows you to make changes. So what if you submit your application to us and you realize you still made a mistake? Just give us a call or email us. We can fix those changes for you. We can make those changes in the application for you. Let's talk a little bit about the user guide. This is a great tool. The user guide for administrators is located on the department's website. It covers logging to the gateway for the first time, becoming an organization administrator, how to apply for a license, certificate of authority, or registration, how to upload documents in the licensure gateway, paying invoices by credit card, paying invoices by check, and also it covers printing certificates. Once you have submitted your renewal application, you will receive an application receive email informing you that your application has been received by the department. So make sure you keep your email address current. Now you would look up on the current applications and it's going to tell you how to upload documents. Not uploading documents takes your applications longer to get processed. And then we have to send out deficiency letters, which also takes longer. So you click on the blue tile to check the status of your renewal application and upload documents. Now, the next slide is my favorite. Why upload documents? Because there's no need for the department to send you a deficiency letter. It saves time. Sometimes mail can get lost or it's late. Your application gets processed quicker. And then once approved, you can print and post your certificate in a conspicuous place at your location. Now, to upload documents, you're going to click on plus uploads. PDF files are acceptable as uploads. So you click on home or back to the license once you've uploaded those documents. Please don't try to upload or email pictures of documents or pictures that you take with your cell phone. Those documents do not come out right, and sometimes they're not readable. Now you will see view files once the documents are uploaded, and then you will click on back to license or home. So notice you see view files that lets you know that your documents are uploaded. Now you're back on the home page. The department will review your application. Once your application is approved, the contact person or administrator, who sometimes is the same person, is going to get an approval email letting you know that you can log into the licensure gateway and print your certificate. Make sure you review your certificate carefully. Make sure you look at the name of the company, make sure the address is right, make sure everything's spelled correct. Also, make sure that the certificate expires 12/31, that will be 2026. If it says 2025, please contact the department because something is actually wrong. And also make sure that that certificate is signed by our administrator, Carrie Gruby-Leibarker. We just have a few frequently asked questions that we wanted to go over. We still get this question. After I have submitted my physical fitness renewal application online, how long will it take to receive my certificate or certificates? Applications are reviewed in the order they are received. If documents are required, the department will send you a deficiency letter by email. Now, once the application is approved, the contact person on file will receive an email informing them that their application has been approved and they may log in and print the certificate. We also get this one. I filed my annual report late. Can I pay the fee online? No. All late fees must be mailed to the department. And also, when is my annual report due to the department? Annual reports for the previous calendar year must capture the required information annually, and that's from January 1st through December 1st. Therefore, all annual reports must not be submitted to the department before January 1st annually. Annual reports submitted after June 30th are subject to the penalty of $50. This is our contact information. A lot of you already reach out to Catherine, licensed examiner that's been working so well with physical fitness facilities. And then there's our licensed attorney information, Corey Hawley. And then there's my information. And then there's Adam Burr's information, our enforcement attorney. So if you have any questions about the renewal, if you need any assistance, please feel free to reach out to us. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over to Joni Green, Deputy Chief Investigator, and she will talk to you about compliance reviews. Thank you.
Hey, good afternoon. My name is Shoni Green. I am the Deputy Chief Investigator here at the Department of Consumer Affairs. And I am one of the folks that might come by and visit you at your gym or physical fitness location. And I'm just going to talk to you about some of the things that we will look for during compliance reviews. So there are 6 investigators. Myself, our Chief Investigator is Ken Middlebrooks. We have Brian Gibbs, Robert Johnson, James Breeden, and Rosa McCoy. So it should be one of the 6 of us that show up at your facility. James Breeden and Robert Johnson have been doing the bulk of our physical fitness compliance reviews here recently. So more than likely, if you've had somebody visit you, it's probably one of them, but it could be any of us. We will show up at your facility. It could be announced, or we might just pop in. Sometimes we call and make appointments, but sometimes we're just in the area and we will stop by. Sometimes we do compliance reviews through, we call them virtual compliance reviews. So sometimes we might contact you through the mail or through email, or we may call you and ask you to upload information to us so that we can kind of look through your contracts and stuff and do just a virtual desk review. It could be either way. During the compliance reviews, however we handle them, we're going to ask for the same things. So we're going to come in and we're going to ask for your rate sheet, which is going to be the pricing of all the membership options that you offer. We're going to want to see copies of your current membership agreements. We'll want a sample contract that we can keep. And then we're going to want to look at some of those executed contracts. Typically, we want to look at 2 or 3 executed contracts for each membership option. So if you have a paid in full option, we'll want to see a couple of those. If you do month to month, we'll want to see a couple of those. If you have installment contracts, we'll want to see a few of those. We're going to take a look at any current advertisements that you might have, and then any other records that we need to be able to verify compliance. So sometimes we might ask for receipt books. We might ask for a list of your current customers, just anything that we need to be able to verify that you are in compliance with all state guidelines. Some tips for you for compliance reviews. We try to make them as pleasant as possible. We're not mean folks. We don't want y'all to worry about us coming out. We try to use them as kind of educational opportunities. So if we do see problems, we want to work with you to get those problems addressed. So don't worry, if we show up, even if it's unannounced, we're going to work with you. Just some tips for it to go smoothly. If you can keep your files in a central location and in a searchable order, however, whatever system works for you, if that's alphabetical, if it's the date of the contract, just whatever works for your business. But if we ask for a certain type of membership, or if we ask for a certain consumer, something that you can find for us kind of quickly. Keep in mind that contracts must be maintained for the period that they're in effect and then 1 year after they expire. So if you have people that are expiring this month, you'll need to keep those contracts for 12 additional months before you dispose of them by shredding or however you safely get rid of those contracts. Something else just kind of remember is that we're just there doing our job too. So, we like to keep things pleasant and professional. And we don't want this to be something that's confrontational. We are not looking to interrupt your business. If you're in the middle of a class, we can wait, or we can make an appointment to come back. If it's just not a good day for you, if you have another employee there that's not able to help us, we can set up a time that works for everybody. But we do have a job to do too. So we will need to get those records, and we will need to talk with you to get the compliance review conducted. If you do have any problems or issues with a certain consumer, make notes of those in the file, because sometimes those are the ones that we're there to look at. If we do hear of like an industry tip that something, the industry has let us know that maybe there's an issue, with a gym, or if somebody goes into another gym and joins and they talk about the problems they had at their former gym. Sometimes we hear those tips and things, and those will be the issues that we'll want to ask you about while we're there. Sometimes they're unfounded. I mean, sometimes it's just disgruntled former consumers, but then sometimes where there's smoke, there's fire. So if you do have an issue, just make sure you can keep notes on it, because, you know, after it's a period of time passes, sometimes you forget and you might not be able to answer the questions and stuff. So just make sure you keep that in the folder. We have already touched on this, but make sure that the certificate of authority is posted. That's something that we check. So make sure you have the current one posted. Make sure that your printed contracts, Adam went over a lot of those requirements already, but just make sure that it has all of those required disclosures. That's something that we're going to look at while we're there. If it is missing something, we can work with you to get those required disclosures added to your contract. Sometimes we can work with you to get addendums to the contracts that you already have. If you're using electronic versions of your contracts, I know a lot of people are kind of going toward paperless, so they have tablets, or they have, you know, where you do it online, and that's okay. But you do need to be able to print those for us while we're there, or for the consumers when they sign up. If, you know, if it's a whoever it is, if they don't have access to email or computer for you to email them their contract, then you need to be able to print it and give them a copy before they leave, because they'll need a copy when they sign up. And then we may ask for a copy of it while we're there. Personal trainers, Adam, he touched on that too. We license personal trainers sometimes separately from gyms. And the way we decide if a personal trainer needs to be filed separately is we follow the money. So if you have personal trainers on staff that you pay to provide training for your members, then they are covered under your certificate of authority. If the personal trainer comes in and works out some sort of payment plan with the consumer themselves, so you're not, you know, you're not getting paid for it, you're just letting them work out at your gym, then that personal trainer will need to have his own certificate of authority, because he's providing that personal training service to the customers, and he's not covered under your certificate. Even though he's working out in your gym, he's getting paid separately from you, so he needs his own. Something else just to keep in mind, if you do buy a location that's already operational, or if you sell a gym that you currently own, just be aware that the certificate of authorities are not transferable, and the new owners will need to get their own certificate. So if you can mention it to them when you sell, that's very helpful for us. And if you do sell, just let us know that you're no longer operating at that location that you sold, so we can go out and activate your listing, and also go get them filed. Just some things to kind of keep in mind. Reviews can be random, or they could be complaint driven. Random reviews, we try to do about 25% of our industry each year. So we kind of keep it on about a 4-year rotation. If we find some issues while we're there, we may come back sooner than that. And sometimes it just works out where we're in an area and, you know, we were there 3 years ago, but we might stop by again, just because we're trying to get as much done in that area in our day as we can. So about every 4 years, but it could be a little quicker. Also, we like to be proactive rather than reactive. So if you're making changes to your business model, or if you're going to change up your membership options, feel free to call us if you think that's going to trigger some changes needed to your membership options. If it's going to maybe trigger needing the contract now, if it's going to trigger needing that financial responsibility. Anytime you have questions or concerns, you can reach out to any of the investigators, any of the licensing staff. We'll be glad to help you if you're going to make changes. Again, this was just another random important that make sure you can print those contracts for consumers. We get asked a lot about, you know, what does the department do for unlicensed folks? How do we find them? And so we kind of have a few different ways. Industry reporting is a great way. So if you're a gym in a area and you're licensed and you're doing things the right way, but you know a new fella down the street has just opened and he's not licensed, if you want to just give us a tip about that so we can stop by and introduce ourselves and get them licensed, that is always appreciated. Gyms kind of come and go a lot, so it's hard for us to keep up. There's only 6 of us that travel the state. So it's, you know, South Carolina is not huge, but it's big for 6 people to keep up with. We also look while we're just out during our daily activities. when we are in an area, if we're going to, Joni's Gym in Columbia and we're on Gym Road and I ride by and I see another gym in that area that I don't know is licensed or not, I'll jot it down. And when I get back to the office, I'll check. Consumer complaints is a great way for us to find out about unlicensed folks. If somebody is not licensed and they close, or somebody's paying them, they can't get the money back because they're not getting what they want. That triggers us to come out and check on you. And we also do internet searches, so we'll just Google gyms in the area and see who comes up. So we do try to keep a rein on it, but physical fitness changes pretty quickly. We have people come in and out of business. We have locations pop up and close, so it is hard for us to stay on top of it, but we do try. But again, if we come out, don't worry about it. We're friendly, and we're just there to do our job. We will work with you. Don't be afraid, even if things are not completely perfect. We'll just work with you to get things back in compliance, and we will make a great relationship. If you have any questions, just let us know, and I'm going to turn it back over to Carrie now.
Thanks, Joni. Okay, so we are getting close to the end of our time together. So I'm just going to briefly go over some of the privacy law information I wanted to provide, the scam information, and let y'all know about some free tools that are coming up. So in South Carolina, we have a records disposal law. That means if you have a record that contains personal identifying information of somebody, so that includes, personal information like a social security number, a driver's license number, includes financial account numbers. It really runs the gamut. Before you dispose of that record, you have to make sure that that information is unreadable and undecipherable. The law does allow you to hire a third party to assist you with that, but you need to make sure you do due diligence in selecting that vendor and that they provide a certification that they did indeed dispose of those records in compliance with the law. Then we also have a law about security breach notifications. Here at the department, we get notice if there is a breach that affects more than 1,000 South Carolina residents. You also have to notify affected residents, and they give you several options on how you can do so. There are some limitations, especially in the area of electronic. And if it's going to be more than, I think it's $500,000 or it's more than 250,000 people affected or vice versa, you can do substitute notice, which includes contacting the media and putting information on your website. I mentioned previously that we have a guide for businesses on how to comply with the state privacy laws that's being updated. It should be released next month and will be available on our website. But we have 2 webinars, one on avoiding scams and ID theft in the workplace for businesses coming up. It's going to be Thursday, December 4th at 2 p.m. And then one 2 weeks later on December 18th covering state and federal privacy laws. So you can sign up for those by going to our website at consumer.sc.gov, scrolling to the bottom to see the calendar, and then clicking on the links there to register. The Federal Trade Commission has a great resource as well for small businesses on cybersecurity that's very helpful, and their website has videos and quizzes to help arm your staff with information that they need to know. And we just want to make you aware too that we hear about scams all the time, not only from consumers, but from businesses. And scammers use the same tactics, no matter who you are, and they try and pretend to be somebody you trust, like an IT person or a CEO or a vendor. They create a sense of urgency. They use intimidation and fear. They ask for untraceable payment methods like wire transfers. So make sure you're training your staff to be able to recognize and spot these kind of scams, and be wary of email requests for personal, financial, or other sensitive information. Make sure you're verifying the request in person or by telephone by contacting the person and number belongs to them. Be wary of distributing sensitive information by email. Have a multi-person approval process for transactions above a certain amount. And if sensitive information requests come in, and train your staff on your policies and how to spot the latest scams. All right, so we hope to see you on a future webinar there. I'm going to check now to see if we have any topics for our hot topic open forum. So as I'm doing that, if you haven't sent one yet, now is the time to do so. Not seeing any yet. We'll give you all a minute just in case. Bailey, why don't we go ahead and launch that last poll question just to give folks an additional minute or two. So have you attended a DCA education webinar in the past 3 years? Yes or no? All right, go ahead and close that out, Bailey. So lots of folks who haven't. Well, great. Well, we hope to see you on one of our future seminars. We hold a privacy law seminar and a business scam seminar, or webinar, I should say, quarterly. We try and do that quarterly. We also have some business education, a specific page that's coming out, and a flyer as well. Not seeing any questions, so we will just slide on to the wrap up. So just some reminders. This webinar is going to be available on YouTube. We will send out a notice via email whenever it's ready. That business scams webinar is coming up December 4th. Why are we talking about December of 2025 already? Time is flying. And then we have the privacy laws webinar following that up 2 weeks later, right before the holidays. Physical fitness renewals are due December 31st. And then if you have to submit a registered creditors renewal, which includes that maximum rate filing or the credit grantor notification that Adam spoke of earlier, that is due January 31st. If you're renewing, if you've never filed and you realize you need to file, you should do that immediately. That should happen right now. And then I mentioned too that we put rates and charges on our website along with the licensee lookup, and just wanted to show you where that is. And so maximum rates posted on the web. You can do the licensee lookup by scrolling down to the middle of our web page, and then it goes to the fees and the lookup section for licensees. You can see kind of the list of the licensees there. And then for more information that could be applicable to your business on our website, you can look under the administrations, licensing, and business education and tools, links under the business resources and laws tab, and then always follow us. As far as news goes, from the news tab, we're on all the social, website, everything. And you can get different publications for us for free too, including that ID theft guide for businesses once we have that published. All right, I'm going to check again to see if we have any questions. All right, not seeing any. If any pop up later on, you can certainly contact Deborah or your licensing specialist. We thank you for joining us today and hope to see you soon on a future Department of Consumer Affairs webinar. Have a great one.